Ladies and gentlemen, today we have the privilege to welcome Phil McAuliffe, a pioneering thought leader in the realm of loneliness. Drawing from his profound personal experience, Phil has dedicated himself to initiating and leading conversations that destigmatize loneliness and foster authentic human connections. Phil firmly believes that to find true connection, we must first own our loneliness. This means embracing the term, discussing it openly, and engaging in kind and honest dialogue. His work highlights the significant impact of not addressing loneliness, which can be detrimental to individuals, workplaces, and communities alike. Through his initiative, Humans Connecting, Phil is on a mission to support business, audiences, and individuals in learning from loneliness and achieving the connections we all inherently need. Please join us in welcoming Phil to this excellent conversation. Phil, welcome.
Thank you so much. It's just a privilege to have a chat. It's great to be here.
Thank you. So first of all, Phil, can you share your personal journey and what led you to become a thought leader in the field of loneliness? How you decided to land in this sector of thinking, please?
Yeah, it's a great question, and I answer this question when I'm asked it in a way that I didn't grow up wanting to be a loneliness thought leader. Indeed, I still don't really know what a loneliness thought leader is. It feels like I'm making it up as I go along. But in many aspects, I'm here because I followed my curiosity. And I did not want to do this. It feels like this chose me. But I'll take a big step back. It's hard to know exactly, when loneliness started. Did it start in the playground of my primary school of like 90 students in regional New South Wales, in Australia? Did it start, I don't know, when I went to boarding school just outside of Melbourne? Did it start, when I was at university and I didn't feel smart enough in a tutorial of 15 other people who were really smart and knew what to say and how to say it? It's hard to know when, but I realized that I was experiencing loneliness when I was on a diplomatic posting. And my former wife and I had lived and worked in Venezuela. So I'm Australian. So lived and worked in Venezuela, in Darwin in the Northern Territory, so far north of Australia, and Ho Chi Minh City, back here in Canberra for 3 years, and then Seoul, and then Wellington in New Zealand. And it was during that time in Seoul, I was getting to my late 30s. I was about to turn 40, and something wasn't right. Something wasn't right within me. And ever since I was 14, I'd wanted to be work in diplomacy. I wanted to serve my country overseas. I wanted to do something that mattered to my country and make a really good contribution to the world. And I got to do it. It was my posting in Ho Chi Minh City in Vietnam, and it was again my posting in Seoul. And I got to do amazing things with the Korean government on behalf of my government, and with the Japanese government on behalf of my government. But there was something within me that, for the appearances beyond me, happily married, 2 amazing children who were thriving, there was nothing within me. And I speak English. I've learned French, German, Spanish, Vietnamese, Korean, and now Te Reo Maori. But words and I are friends. I love speaking, and writing. Words are friends of mine. But how could I couldn't describe what was sort of happening in here. And how can I ask for help when I can't describe it? And the words that I could use kind of didn't really fit, but something happened. I realized that I couldn't sort of describe it, but I knew I needed to talk to someone. And I knew I needed to talk to a friend, not my then wife, but I needed to talk to a friend. And I couldn't think of someone to talk to. It had been so long since I'd seen my friends face to face. And I'm presuming in a similar way to conversations in Canada, here, we have these conversations and we catch up on the phone, and we talk for an hour, and you kind of go through the checklist. You go through work, you go through the relationship, you go through kids, you talk about, people you have in common. Then an hour passes, and it's been great to chat, and off like you hang up. And I didn't have the words to go, I don't know how to describe this, but I just need you to listen. And then I didn't have anyone to say that to, and that really that hit me. And then a little while later, I read an article in the Boston Globe from a journalist in his midlife, and that article talked about the emerging trend, I guess, for want of a better term, of loneliness in middle-aged men. And that was the word, like lonely and loneliness. And I'm like, ooh, I knew it was true. I knew it was true, but I did not want it to be true. I did not want it to be true. And I spoke about it. I spoke to my then wife, and we kind of went into like fix it mode. And we looked for ways for me to do connection and things, but it kind of worked, but then didn't really work. And I called my employer like assistance line, like our EAP service for counselors. And I said, hi, I'm calling to you from Seoul. They were in Australia. It was like, I kind of sort of think that I might be a little bit lonely. And she responded in this way, this very broad Australian accent, which I still remember to this day. And she's like, oh, you poor thing. That's not good. And it was a 10-minute like free call over 10 minutes. And I'm like, I don't want your pity. I want you to fix it. Like, I don't want to feel like this anymore. I don't want to have these thoughts. I don't want to feel like this. Tell me the thing that will fix it. And she said these words to me: you just have to put yourself out there. And I got mad. I got really mad because I'm like, you haven't been listening to me. I've been describing my life. I'm a diplomat. I need essentially to be perfect because I'm representing my country all the time. And I live and work, which is a privilege, without doubt. But when I leave the office, I'm in Korea. And I don't fit in. Wherever I go, whichever room or like get on a subway train or whatever, like I was always going to stick out. And my Korean wasn't good. My employer gave me 3 weeks of Korean, one of the most difficult languages for English speakers to learn. It's pretty much diametrically opposed on like, a loneliness, on a language scale to English. And I got 3 weeks of it. And so I like the advice of put yourself out there. And it's like, I have a big job. I am a dad. I'm a husband. And out there is Korea. Like, and where does the time come to do this? Anyway, I'll fast forward, but that was the frustration. The advice that I got was, I know now, to be manifestly terrible. And this was, I got support. I went through a coaching program, and that coaching program led me to reconnect with myself. And I started to be more me in interactions, because what had happened was I was presenting as all the different roles that I had in my life, and the connection that I was getting back wasn't registering with me because I wasn't being me. So it was connection with the mask, and the connection only sort of went to the mask, not to me. And a whole lot of stuff happened, like over the course. Like, I recognized that, you know, I was gay. I came out. My relationship ended while we were in Wellington in New Zealand, and it sort of started this whole process of connection to myself, and then boldly, bravely, courageously having the courage to be me in interactions. So not the mask, not who I was, not my job, not anything like that. But then I realized that I needed that other people around me didn't have the words that I now had, but were experiencing it. So I started writing, and created The Lonely Diplomat, created The Loneliness Guy, and sort of bringing them both together now in Humans Connecting. We know, like loneliness feels terrible, but it's so hard to talk about it, mainly because there's a stigma to it. But also, we'll get into this. I'm getting ahead of myself, but like, this is purely driven. I am here right now because I know how hard it is to talk about it. And I know how poorly we respond to it. So, and from the professionals. So I now know that psychologists, when they go to university or college, like, loneliness is kind of taught in a morning. And it's not really sort of factored in. But we know that loneliness is like a natural human experience. Like, we're meant to feel lonely. I can get into this in a moment. But the response that we often give is pity.
Yeah.
Oh, you poor thing. And pity sounds like empathy. It sounds good. But basically, when we give that pity, when we say you poor thing, it's putting distance. It's like, I don't want whatever is happening there on me. Thanks. Like, no, thank you. And we go to fix it.
Yeah.
So let me Google, I don't know, like, you like singing, like, let's join a choir, go volunteer, like, let's get you out and out and out. If we're not being ourselves in those interactions aren't going to be the connection that we need. So that terrible advice, you just need to put yourself out there, I was focusing on, and this is still on the internet, this is still the common response to loneliness, sort of outing as lonely. The response is, you just got to put yourself out there, and the emphasis is out there. We're getting that wrong. The emphasis needs to be, you need to put yourself out there.
Mm.
And that's why we're here.
Yeah.
That's why I'm here.
Yeah, so true, so true. Well, I was listening to you. It was so profound, because so many things have shifted just by listening to you. So many things have shifted in me as well, because how I see loneliness and everything. So you have kind of covered most of the grounds that what are some common misconceptions about loneliness and
Yes.
that you encounter into work. So I will straight jump to the next question, that how can individuals, like those who are not professionally or on a very thinking level aware of it, how they can recognize the signs of loneliness in themselves and or in their
Yeah.
people around them or the loved ones, please?
Yeah. I think there's a couple of ways that I want to answer this.
Yeah.
How, like, there are some ways that we know we can expect loneliness to come calling.
Yeah.
And that can be a source of fear and a source of dread. But we always need to remember, and to the human watching this, I really want to say this. Loneliness is an entirely normal, expected part of what it means to be human. Humans experience loneliness, and we're meant to. We're meant to. It is our body's signal. It is meant to make us feel awful, to make us stop and go, huh, I need to go and connect. So, knowing that, we have two choices. The first choice is that we can fear it, or we can be bold, maybe not welcome it in the sense of like, like, being a gracious host, but acknowledging that this is an uncomfortable experience. And knowing that it is an uncomfortable experience, that every human, no matter what we do for a job, no matter where we are in the world, no matter how much we have coming in our paycheck, no matter no matter what car we drive, no matter what address we have, like there is no immunity to this. Whether we're in a relationship or not, there is no immunity to this. Everybody is meant to experience loneliness. And we know that we experience loneliness. We most notice loneliness at times of change. So starting a new job, moving house, ending a relationship, however that relationship ends, whether it's a breakup or tragically, like our partner, our spouse passes away. So, and there are times when we like would normally expect it, like during like part of grief, and like ongoing parts of grief. But there are also parts, it's like, changing schools, like going from primary to secondary school, going from secondary school to tertiary education. We know like moving house, moving country, times of change in our lives. And, that could also be, a global pandemic that stops us living our lives and confines us to our houses. It's a pretty radical, sudden change, right? But we most notice loneliness at times of change, and that's at once empowering because then we can confidently, not anxiously, but confidently anticipate it and welcome it. And so knowing that loneliness presents within each of us in lots of different ways. So it's really hard to go, if you're thinking this and if you're feeling that, that's loneliness, right? But I'll say two things. One is rather than anticipating loneliness, we can flip it because we already know the antidote to loneliness is connection. So how can we be, rather than how can I respond to loneliness, is how can I feed connection? How can I identify the connection that I need that is important to me? And then how can I then go and get it? And like factor that in every day. At every time that I'm aware of it, I'm making a choice to connect. such as, I don't know, like choosing at the supermarket rather than the self-checkout, choosing the one staffed by a human. And that even if you don't say anything, if you don't like, you're choosing human interaction. And that's really important. And then the second thing for me, I will share how loneliness shows up for me. And loneliness shows up for me in the stories that I tell myself. And there's a particular loneliness working on loneliness. It's an ironic loneliness of working on loneliness, because it's one of those things everybody's fascinated about, but no one wants to have for themselves. We all have it, like, because we're meant to, right? But one of the things, like, it's a, like, I'm a social entrepreneur working on something that everyone thinks is great until they need it themselves. And it's any entrepreneurial journey, like, it's not a Disney movie. Well, it is a Disney. It's the like the cycle, like the story cycle, the journey, and you like the triumph over adversity. But at times, like, loneliness shows up for me in the stories that I tell myself, and I'm particularly nasty to myself. And I have this uncanny ability to make decisions by people I know or don't know all about me. I can at once be the antagonist in my story and the protagonist.
Both.
Yeah, yeah. It's a super talent that I have, and only if I could make it for good. But when I'm getting better at recognizing that, it's like, whoa, like it's that kind of, I've tipped from an event, and my response being like moments from like neutral to the depths of like, I'm a fundamentally flawed human who is unworthy of love and belonging. And I can make that Olympic level leaping from that. So for me, I don't know if that will support, but to answer your amazing question, it's, we anticipate it, we can respond to it by knowing that it happens. It's meant to happen, because its only job is to tell us that we're not getting the connection that we need and deserve.
Yeah.
But then how it shows up for me, will be different to how it shows up for you. There might be some similarities there, but for me, it's like, it's the thing that makes me feel unworthy of being around other people. I want to isolate myself. I want to like, say, an expletive, flip the tables, saying, well, you can all go away. And because that's a defense mechanism of mine, because something's upset me.
It's okay. The
So
good thing,
yeah,
the good thing about your conversation is that that's how I know that you're really good in communication, because so many questions, few questions in front of me, without me asking, you're giving the answer. So it is so good to hear you, because there is a, like, as I'm conversating with you, there is a paradigm shift happening in my head. So about how I see loneliness and everything. So in connection to that, I will straight up to the point that for our readers, that is there any impact of loneliness, very briefly, if there is because we'll have to be moving on to the next question, is there any impact, or like practical or like plausible impact of loneliness on physical and mental health? You have already outlined that, but just to touch, like in a story like this.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yes.
please, briefly.
Yes. we know that loneliness kills us. It kills us very effectively. And it is not given the attention that it needs. We know that loneliness left untended is an antecedent condition or feeds left untended to become chronic. It makes us develop anxiety and depression. Right? Loneliness in itself is not a mental health issue. Loneliness is not a mental health issue. Loneliness is an emotion that tells us that we need to work on our social health. But leaving that aside, like if we ignore it, which we do,
Yeah,
we ignore it, it develops into anxiety and depression. Not only that, it can it can contribute to developing certain cancers, diabetes, dementia, and all for want of us having meaningful connection that is meaningful to each of us. So before you ask your next question, I find it's telling. It's telling. Here in Australia, we talk about openly, more openly certainly than what we used to in the past, that, friends tell each other that they're on antidepressants or on anti-anxiety medications. I can't do that because it makes me anxious. And, there's whole campaigns around, it's okay to not be okay. It's, not weak to speak. It's all of these and they are fantastic. They are absolutely fantastic. But can we please start talking about why many of us feel the need to seek treatment for anxiety and depression?
and and the symptoms that you have told, that dementia and anxiety and everything is backed by science, that science have already done that and everything. So as you said that for the conversation, my next question is very connected to that. So what advice would you give to someone who feels ashamed or, let's say, embarrassed about their loneliness, and they're feeling lonely and everything? So what will be your suggestion to these people that okay, stop being ashamed of it, embarrassed about it, and how can they start having a conversation with others about their own loneliness? What would be your advice for them?
Two things here. One is loneliness owns you until you own it.
Fantastic. Fantastic.
And it owns you. Like, if you're not aware of it, it's pulling the levers and the cords and all those kind of things. It's making the decision. You get an invitation to a Friday night to a party, and your first instinct, no.
Yeah.
Don't want to do it. Don't want to do it. It's like, whoa, okay, like, fine, you don't want to do it. But we could ask ourselves, why? Why don't we want to do it? It's like, oh, I'm afraid of judgment, or whatever. But our first response when we notice a loneliness response or a loneliness-driven response or influenced response is to respond with curiosity. Where's this coming from? Why? Why is that? Second thing, we need to come out as lonely. And that is far easier said than done. Part of my story, I was in the closet for about 40 years. 30 years, sorry, 30 years. I was in the closet. So I'm now out as a gay man. My partner, he's amazing. And, we have my children from our previous from my previous relationship, and they're 17. And then, they like there's custodial arrangements between us and their mum, and like all 5 of us are very close. But I come out all the time. I come out all the time as gay. And most of the time, it's like, okay, like, great, thanks, let's move on. Or like, yeah, your story is so inspiring, blah, blah, blah. I also come out as lonely all the time. By virtue of the work that we do, I come out as lonely all the time. We know how to respond to someone who comes out as gay. We don't know how to respond to someone who comes out as lonely, because, Suman, I'm just going to say, like, me coming out as gay, if you're secure in your sexuality, however you identify, like me coming out as being gay, that's no threat to you. However, me coming out as lonely to you, like if we were close friends and me coming out as lonely to you, or we knew each other in a non-professional way, the immediate response is like, I want to show up for you, but I also want to take a step back, because you coming out as lonely to me compels me to sit with the fact that the quality of my connection is not what I want it to be, is not where I need it to be. And so someone coming out as lonely, and I say that very deliberately, it takes courage each and every time to come out. And the same, like if for people who aren't, in the rainbow community, if you want to get an indication of what it is like to come out as gay or trans or bi or a lesbian, however, start admitting your loneliness aloud.
Mm.
Coming out is coming out is coming out. But as so many people know, once you come out, either as lonely or, out of the closet, things get real, and it's amazing. Suddenly the thing that has been a barrier that we develop in many instances to keep us safe from judgment, from ridicule, from discomfort.
Yeah.
That wall has done its job. So much so that nothing or very little comes in anymore. And so our place of safety has become our prison.
Yeah. Wonderful thought.
And so I say this, and I don't want to labor the point, but I want to be really clear. We need to come out as humans who have connection needs. Right?
So true. So true.
But it takes courage. So much courage.
A lot of.
Because with loneliness, it is that very quick leap or descent from I'm lonely to I'm unworthy of love and belonging. And that's not a conversation starter. That's not like, hi, how are you? I'm lonely, brackets.
Yeah.
I feel like I'm unworthy of love and belonging. How are you? It's not something that we do. So we don't.
Yeah.
We never do. And as a result, billions of us globally are carrying this around inside us.
Yeah. No matter who you are. You're a professional, you're a housewife, human, just human. Yeah.
Yep.
Whenever I'm listening to you, like it is such a thing that our sense of safety becomes our own prison. Such a powerful thought. I'm still processing it. I'll let myself sink it, but it's so liberating. So
Yeah.
you have touched so many corners and everything, and definitely most probably we will be having more of these conversations. So lastly, for all the readers, they're already enlightened enough, but from this topic, and such a rarely talked topic and such an important topic, I just want to ask you, what are the future trends or innovations do you see in the field that you are working regarding human connections and everything? Very briefly for our readers. For example, do you see there is a connection between technology, rise of technology and loneliness and everything? So what are the future trends you are looking at very briefly for our readers?
Yeah.
Just a departing thought,
Yeah.
please.
Yeah. Thank you. I think one is I find great comfort in knowing that we already know the antidote to loneliness.
Yeah.
We already know the antidote. And we have known the antidote to loneliness ever since we started being humans.
Yeah.
So great. Like, done. There's two waves here. Loneliness, moving through loneliness requires connection. Connection takes time. Above all else, connection takes time. It is not something, it's not Uber Eats, it's not Deliveroo, it's not whatever, like, where, you order something from the local takeaway and 5 minutes later it's in your house.
No.
It's not, we try that. We try that through hookup apps, through dating apps, try that. And, an itch is scratched, but it's not the itch that we really need. However, I think the big revolution, there's two. One, we're looking for an AI solution to human loneliness. And so much money is going into investing, into finding a solution or the solution through AI that we will have on our phones that, when we're feeling lonely, we can engage with with something like AI generated something that helps us feel connected. I'm very wary of that. AI, social media is a tool for connection, not a place of connection.
So true.
Because if we are looking, if the answer is anything different from human connection, so connection with ourselves, with those most important to us, and with our communities, like if we're using the tool to help that happen, we're going through it rather than in it. And then so I'm wary of that. And then the second thing is connection takes time. And we're so busy. Busyness feeds loneliness. Busyness kills connection. It's the most common thing that we see. It's like, oh my God, I'm lonely. It's like, great, well done. Well done, you've come out. Now, how do we feed connection? It's like, I need to, like, how about, we invest time and do the thing. Oh no, I'm far too busy. I can't do that. I've got so many. It's like, okay, you're busy, but busyness feeds loneliness.
Yeah.
And so connection takes time, and kind of like the slow food movement, but I feel like we're like, it's the human connection movement is actually going, you know what? You could be busy.
Yeah.
I'm going to choose an extra 5 minutes of this meeting in my work to actually genuinely find out what's going on with people. Like these people that I spend so much time with, like, what's going on? How are you? And care, because we've invested the time and others have invested their time in us. This is not something that we can just kind of, and on social media, like tapping a like does not connection make? Like, scroll, scroll, scroll. You don't feel connected. You feel connected when you use the phone as a phone and talk to someone.
Yeah. Yeah.
So they're the two things. We're looking for an AI solution, a tech solution. And then, but I feel the answer is actually, we already know the answer. It's in human connection. We know the answer already. So how do we create places, spaces, and encourage people to slow down and connect? Because when we do that in our workplaces, we know that humans thrive. And places where humans thrive, in community, in workplaces, those places flourish. So the answer to like having more and more productive workplaces is actually slow down, let the humans be human.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then
please.
People take off. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm seriously taking down, at least from this conversation, the first thing I'll immediately apply tomorrow is after every meeting and after every office conversation, take 5 minutes to interact with my colleagues, my team members, what's going on in your life. Phil, thank you so much for sharing your invaluable insights and experience. It's truly mind-blowing. Your dedication to destigmatize loneliness and fostering genuine human connection is truly inspiring. That is also the name of the organization you're working, Humans Connecting, is making significant impact on individuals, workplaces, and communities. Wishing you continued success in your mission to help us all learn from loneliness, your stories, find authentic connections we needing. Thank you again on behalf of our whole team of Magazika and on behalf of our readers. Thank you again and again for joining with us. So nice of you.
Been an absolute pleasure. Thank you so much for having me.